All right, Democrat socialist and leftist populist propagandist Kyle Kulinski has something to say about Democrats spending millions to create a Joe Rogan of the left. Before we get to that, though, I want to play this clip by fake yapper Jake Tapper from the Counterfeit News Network. Listen to this nonsense in light of the fact that Jake Tapper works for a news organization that's supposed to get out the news, that's supposed to inform you as things are happening, which means CNN knew about and put the lid on the fact that Joe Biden wasn't fit for the presidency. But check this out.
The morning after the election, Joe Biden woke up convinced he could have won.
He still thinks that. He still thinks he could have won. And Chuck Schumer, when Chuck Schumer finally has the conversation with Biden in which he says that he thinks Biden should drop out, he says, I've talked to your pollsters. They give you a 5% chance of winning. And Biden did not know that because all the polling was interpreted through the spinmeisters around him, Donilon and Ricchetti. And Biden's shocked to hear that. When I talked with one of the pollsters about that story, 5%, he said it was probably more like 1%.
When did you talk to the pollsters about that, fake yapper? It's so bad and so blatant that even Jon Stewart is getting on Jake Tapper and making fun of him about this.
I'm very anxious right now. I'm very nervous, very anticipatory. And it's not about whether Russia and Ukraine will be settled. It's not whether somebody can stop Netanyahu. Somebody, please. It's not whether Taylor's unfriended Blake. I don't know. No, like most people in America, I am most looking forward to reading a book.
Now, let me just say something about Jon Stewart. He is a sold-out statist. But when he puts his finger on the pulse of something, he doesn't let go and he cuts off the circulation to it. And he does it in a very masterful and funny way.
But when?
We're back with breaking news in our politics lead and a brand new excerpt from my upcoming book with Axios' Alex Thompson. It's called Original Sin. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's on Biden's decline. It's called Original Sin. I'm sure you've heard on May 20th. That's Tuesday.
It's about Biden's decline. Now, we're only like 100 and something days into Trump's presidency, and it takes you a while to write this book. So Jake Tapper from the Counterfeit News Network, therefore the CNN News Network and other networks knew about Joe Biden's mental decline, but they put it on the shelf. They put a lid on it. They had time to write books on it, and they didn't let the public know about it.
Sin, that's coming out in 3 weeks on May 20th. That's just 19 days away. In 1 week and 1 day. Coming out in just a few days. Comes out Tuesday. You will not believe what we found out.
Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret? You won't believe what we found out. No, that's why I'm watching. Breaking
Totally grilling him.
news in a week.
Excellent takedown of all of fake stream media. Now here is Democrat socialist, self-proclaimed Democrat socialist Kyle Kulinski talking about Democrats spending millions of dollars for the likes of Brian Tyler Cohen, maybe Adam Mockler, maybe Luke Beasley, maybe Midas Touch. And he's got some things to say about this. This is pretty interesting.
Story in the New York Times here that I wanted to share.
Oh, by the way, spending millions to create a leftist Joe Rogan.
Share with you. And I have conflicting feelings on this. The title here is Democrats Throw Money at a Problem, Countering GOP Clout Online. At private gatherings, strategists and donors are swapping ideas to help the party capture the digital mojo that helped President Trump win. Yes, there's a price tag. So basically the idea here is, and they say this outright at some points, we want to create the liberal Joe Rogan, and we're willing to throw millions and millions of dollars out there to try to create the liberal Joe Rogan. So as you can see here, the picture of this article.
Yeah, and it says, because I don't think he reads under this, Brian Tyler Cohen, a Democratic influencer, helped start a well-publicized liberal nonprofit group meant to strengthen the party's presence online. They are Democrat propagandists. Just like you have your Republican propagandists, they are propagandizing for the state, which is propagandizing against their own interest and the interest of their own people while they say they're for their own people. This is exactly what congressmen and senators do. Oh, I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to represent you. And then they get sold out, they get bought out, and now they're working for the special interests, for the lobbyists, for AIPAC, for the corporate elitists.
Has Brian Tyler Cohen. So they say the following: 6 months after the Democratic Party's crushing 2024 defeat, the party's megadonors are being inundated with overtures to spend tens of millions of dollars to develop an army of left-leaning online influencers. At donor retreats and in-pitch documents seen by the New York Times, liberal strategists are pushing the party's rich backers to reopen their wallets for a cavalcade of projects to help Democrats, as the cliche now goes, find the next Joe Rogan. The proposals, the scope of which has not been previously reported, are meant to energize glum donors and persuade them that they can compete culturally with President Trump if only they can throw enough money at the problem.
It's not about doing the right thing. Nothing in there is about doing the right thing. Taking the moral high ground. It's all about competing culturally with President Trump. Who cares what the outcome is? We just got to win. We got to make sure we're in power. We got to make sure that we have our hands on the levers of what's going on in Washington, D.C., so we can call the shots.
Democrats widely believe they must grow more creative in stoking online enthusiasm for their candidates, particularly in less outwardly political forms of media like sports or lifestyle podcasts. That's interesting. So they're not just looking for like outright political outlets and political commentators. They want people who code left-wing and lean left-wing and maybe touch on politics every now and then, but they might focus primarily on sports or lifestyle or self-help or working out or whatever the case is.
We got to deceive them some way. We got to find some inroads. We got to make it look like, hey, we're interested in what you're interested in. We're in the zone that you're in. We're people just like you. Now, hey, we need you to cough up some money. We need you to cough up some Democrat donor money so that we can create this grassroots campaign so we can put our fingers on the lever of power.
Many now take it as gospel that Mr. Trump's victory last year came in part because he cultivated an ecosystem of supporters on YouTube, TikTok, and podcasts, in addition to the many Trump-friendly hosts on Fox News. The quiet effort amounts to an audacious, skeptics might say desperate, bet that Democrats can buy more cultural relevance online, despite the fact that casually right-leaning touchstones like Mr. Rogan's podcast were not built by political donors and did not rise overnight. Wealthy donors tend to move in packs, and some jaded liberals worry that the excitement could cause money to flow into projects that are not fully fleshed out. They argue that the latest pitches on the left are coming from operatives who are hungry to meet donors' demand for a shiny new object. In a break from the past, some of the Democrats' new ventures are...
Jaded liberals worry that the excitement could cause money to flow into projects that are not fully fleshed out. So we're going to throw a whole bunch of money over here, and they don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't know what their political ideologies are. They don't know what policies they're going to back, but we're going to throw some money at it anyway.
For-profit companies, and so far there are still more ideas than hard committed money. One Democratic operative described compiling a spreadsheet of 26 active projects related to creators, over a dozen of which are new since November, but a few of the efforts have ties to major donors that could give them liftoff. It needs to start with the legitimate investments, said Marissa McBride, a Democratic strategist who leads a donor group called Mind the Gap, but she added there has to be something that is happening organically as well. All right, so now they go on in this piece to describe, first of all, the price tags. There's a lot of big numbers.
Yeah, he doesn't read this. The company incorporated in March says it's aiming to raise $45 million over the next 4 years. The group hopes to have a $70 million budget over that time frame based on predictions of $25 million in revenue. It says it has raised $7 million so far. $7 million. $45 million, $25 million, $70 million. We're talking about dishing out a whole lot of money to a whole lot of maybe small time right now, but soon to be big time social media influencers like now Brian Tyler Cohen working on 5 million subscribers. The guy gets 100, 200 million views, 300 million views a month. Midas Touch is working on 500, 500 million views a month to get out their propaganda, enriching them as they continue to promote statism in their form, the form that they like.
Thrown around here, right? They want to raise $45 million over the next 4 years for one thing. And there's different approaches. So some of them basically want to cultivate it from scratch. Others want to see what's already out there in the ecosystem and then bet on certain horses and help certain horses and try to do it that way. So don't build it from scratch, build it from the ground up. Take what's already out there and try to make a move that way, try to prop people up that way. So that's the general idea of it here. And here's my take on it. I'm curious what all you guys think of it, but in some ways, this is good, and I'll explain that. But in other ways, this is bad. So it's good because there needs to be a liberal and left-wing equivalent of, say, the Daily Wire, right? The commentators on the right, and this is what people really don't understand in this business, if you're not part of it, but the commentators on the right, they are swimming in cash. And it's always been like that, because stop and think about what a right-wing commentator is. A right-wing commentator, they are propagandists through and through, where you have right-wing billionaires who want to spread their propaganda, want to spread their ideology. They pay these people to basically go out there and say, billionaires are great, capitalism is great, definitely don't raise taxes on those people. Here, let's be distracted. Let's talk about trans people. Let's talk about immigrants. Let me try to rile you up and scapegoat some people and get your focus over there. And so, to moneyed interests, they view an investment in right-wing political pundits as like one of the first things they got to do. If they want to maintain their money, they want to maintain their power, they want to maintain their control. So it's always been like that. Rush Limbaugh was a foot soldier for the billionaires, funded by right-wing think tanks, right? Glenn Beck, same thing. Michael Savage, same thing. If some of these names don't sound familiar to you, it's probably because I'm ancient. But this was the first iteration of what we're talking about with right-wing media. It was talk radio and Fox News, and they were flush with cash. In fact, they would do dirty tricks like you would have one of these people would release a book, Bill O'Reilly.
Listen to Kyle literally speak against the current paradigm, which is Washington, D.C.'s political criminals, district of criminals actually running the show. He is speaking against it on the one side while he speaks for it. If money interests could always get into the pockets and control political parasites, then maybe the problem is we need to remove the political parasites, which removes the power. Because see, these moneyed interests work through political spheres. And if political spheres are subject to and synonymous with corruption, then don't you remove those political spheres, at least the centralized political spheres? We know that politics on a local level is easily corruptible. How much more on a national level where there is no oversight from anybody? At least in a small town, you have the townspeople who, if they take an interest in what's going on, can actually put some limitations on the corruption before it gets out of control. You can't do that on the national scale. And yet he is looking for national scale solutions for the problems that the people who claim to be the solutions are causing.
Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, whoever, they'd release a book, and then a right-wing think tank would spend millions of dollars buying that book in bulk. And then when they had some gathering for their right-wing think tank, they would hand out the books for free to everybody who attended it. But buying the book in bulk meant what? Meant, boom, you'd be on the New York Times bestseller list, you'd be in the top 5, and then that creates chatter, that creates buzz, then you get everybody else to talk about the book, which in turn leads to more sales of the book. So you're astroturfing this notion of like, hey, Bill O'Reilly's ideas are really fucking popular, Sean Hannity's ideas are really popular, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck. If they're not popular, why do they keep, hitting number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list? It was all astroturfed, it was all fake, it was all because of the power of big money.
And that's just one level of the astroturfing. That's just one peel that you take off of the onion, only to discover, oh, there's another one, there's another one, there's another layer. And there's so many layers of deception that when you finally understand or finally think that you understand, that you've got down to the last layer of deception so you can uncover the truth of the matter, you get a whole new slew of things you got to peel back because there's way more deception than you could ever comprehend. That's what the federal government is. That's how much waste there is. That's how much corruption. That's how much abuse. That's how many political parasites who are willing to sell their souls just so they can grab the ring of power and step into the limelight for about 30 seconds.
Right? And to this day, the right-wingers, they have a lot of money in that ecosystem. If you are singing the tune the billionaires want you to sing, they will reward you for it. That's how it works. And so there's just never been...
That's how it works on the left, too. And he knows this. He knows this. He's even going to say as much.
And forget a left-wing answer to that. There hasn't even been a liberal answer to that, right? Right now, we are seeing the rise of the Midas Touch Network, for example, and there's some others, but they're never going to compete when dollar for dollar, because as a general...
Midas Touch, they're clearly, it's just three brothers from, somewhere in New York, upstate New York, or somewhere in the Northeast. Three brothers who are clearly propagandists. No doubt about it.
Rule, both the liberals and leftists, they have a position...
Unbelievable that they're even popular.
...that restricts the power of the mega wealthy. And so the mega wealthy aren't going to want to fund somebody who's like, hey, I want to raise your taxes, and every dollar you make over $5 million a year, I want to tax it 90%. What mega wealthy person is going to be like, yeah, let me fund that? They don't want to do it. Now, there are some really wealthy people who happen to be left-wing.
I will say
and,
repeal the Second
there are a couple
Amendment.
groups like patriotic millionaires. There's a few of them. But, it's such a tiny percentage of billionaires that, there's just not as much money on the left. And there never will be, right? Just like Steven Crowder was saying it was like slavery that he got a $50 million contract opportunity from the Daily Wire. Are you fucking kidding me? Everybody who's on the left who does their show saw a $50 million contract. He's getting fucking, NBA contract numbers. And we're over here bro, I got a Patreon, dog. What are you talking about? And that it is what it is. This is what it's like on the right. They swim in that big money. They just do. So this is good in the sense that all of that money gets these right-wing outlets really far, and there's never been a liberal or left-wing answer to these right-wing outlets. And part of the reason for that is because of the lack of funding, the lack of the lack of investment, the lack of having a framework and a foundation and an infrastructure whereby somebody can make it as a left-wing or liberal pundit. It truly is. And I know because I've been doing this shit full time.
This is literally Kyle saying, my psychopathic control freak monster can lie better than your psychopathic control freak monster. Because that's what you're really saying when you're voting for political parasites. They're psychopathic control freaks. That they lie. You're just saying, hey, this guy is a better liar than that guy. So I'm going to go for this guy who's a better liar. And then I'm going to proclaim in my mind through my cognitive dissonance that he's the lesser of two evils. That's Kyle Kulinski. That's Brian Tyler Cohen. That's Midas Touch. That's also every propagandist on the right.
Since 2012, it really is sink or swim. It really is hey, you're on your own. Go ahead and try your best. And if it doesn't work, what are you going to do? They don't have the same sort of, ironically, billionaire provided safety nets that the people on the right have. So on the one hand, I totally get this idea. You absolutely want to create something that can rival the power of the propped up right-wing influence network, right? But at the same time, big money sort of by its nature is corrupting. And that's why, for example, on this show, I've made a pledge to never take big money. I've never...
Big money by its nature is corrupting. That means anybody who goes to Washington, D.C., who's subject to big money is highly likely to be corrupted. I don't care if it's Kyle Kulinski's AOC or Bernie Sanders or Rashida Tlaib. I don't care if it's the people on the right. They are corruptible and corrupted.
I had a conversation with an advertiser doing this show full time since 2012. I've never talked to an advertiser. I've never done an ad read. I promise you guys that the way we make money for the show is your Patreon donations, your Substack support for Crystal Kyle and friends. Outside of that, we just have the default ads on YouTube.
In other words, without big money donors, Kyle Kulinski maintains his status as a leftist propagandist.
There's a buffer between me and any of the advertisers.
I don't care where your donor money comes in. I care what your message is. What's your consistent message? Are you promoting state-funded terrorism? Are you promoting statism? Or do you approve and applaud of people stealing from other people, calling it taxation, which is really extortion? Yeah, Kyle Kulinski's for that. Brian Tyler Cohen is for that. Steven Crowder is for that.
I've made that promise to you because I feel like that's the only way I can do a show which feels pure, which feels like the incentives are correct, which feels like I don't have any, there's no weird puppet strings behind the scenes where I got to try to appease this advertiser or don't say that thing about that advertiser. There's a reason I've set it up like that. And so on the flip side, big money is by its nature sort of corrupting. So almost like anybody who would accept that money, they're sort of agreeing to play that same dirty game that we go after the right for. And then the other point is it possible for them to execute this idea in a way that I think is palatable and net positive? Yes, it is. It is possible for them to do this and make it palatable and make it a net good overall. That is possible. Having said that, I have zero trust in...
We're going to make it a net good overall by promoting something that is inherently bad, and full of corruption. As a matter of fact, politics is synonymous with corruption and lies and euphemistic terminology where they minimize words that actually have meaning so that you can accept it more readily, so that you can be more easily deceived, so that you can accept their propaganda. And when you accept their propaganda, you accept their public relations campaign and their lies. And then you start promoting lies like Kyle does, like Brian Tyler Cohen does, like Midas Touch, like Luke Beasley, like Adam Mockler. They're just all the same. That's why they're getting all the views, because they appeal to a wide range of people who have been propagandized and indoctrinated by the 15,000-hour public fool indoctrination program. And until we break that chain and break that cycle and understand, hey, we don't need psychopaths robbing and ruling us. D by their name, R by their name, we don't need them. And when we step off the plank, they fall. They fall. They cannot rule us if we don't allow them to rule us. That's why I can't stand when, like, the GOA or the NRA, they're like, no, we got to change these bills. We got to change these laws. We can't let this bill become this anti-gun legislation. All you got to do is rise up and go, I don't care what law. You can write whatever you want on pieces of paper. I'm not following it. And if you try to attack me when I haven't done anything wrong, I will have to defend myself. And then if you have millions upon millions upon millions of people uniting on that one thought, they can write anything they want. It doesn't matter. Now you have unity based on truth, based on righteousness, based on morality, and you can't get any higher than that. You violate the golden rule, buddy, in this town, you got another thing coming. We ain't rolling over here. The way we see it, it's liberty or death. So go ahead, try me. We've already given away our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor, because we think liberty is worth fighting for. So go ahead, Washington, D.C., make whatever anti-gun law you want. Make whatever taxation bill you want. We're not following it. If it's antithetical to the golden rule, we ignore it. We reject it.
Wealthy liberal donors executing this idea properly, because they're absolutely going to pick figureheads and they're going to fund people who maybe refuse to talk about issues like Gaza, right? They don't want you to take the controversial stance where you tell the truth when, you know, most people are not telling the truth. They don't want you to do that. So they're going to want you to avoid the real hot button issues. So avoid talking about Gaza, avoid talking about war, avoid getting into corruption and how, yes, the right and Republicans are the most corrupt and it's not close. But that doesn't mean I'm going to bite my tongue if I see a Democrat being corrupt, right? And we got to call that out too. And my guess is they wouldn't take kindly to that, right? They probably won't take kindly to conversations about gerontocracy, where you have these 8 Democrats have died in office in the past 3 months. And it's because they're ancient and they don't want to let go of their power, and then they die, and that ends up helping the Republicans, and it's easier for the Republicans to pass bills.
They don't want to let go of what, Kyle? Their power. But you want to fill that seat with a younger Democrat who grabs those reins of power. See, Kyle's problem is, and every leftist or rightist propagandist problem is, that they want another man or woman to have power over them. And it's time to stop. Because those people who have power over you are not going to do you any good. They're going to do you bad. They're going to steal more money from you. They're going to take more of your rights away so that they can increase their power and their wealth and their notoriety and their prestige. That's what politics is. And if you become a talking piece, a mouthpiece for them, you're a propagandist for them, and you're just as bad as they are. You actually paved the road for them into my life and into your life, whoever's watching this. You are actually giving them the stamp of approval to rule us and to rob us, Kyle. Isn't it time we stop that? Isn't it time we decentralize this centralized oligarchy that we have, whether it's under the Democrats or the Republicans? You say you're against authoritarianism, but what is Washington, D.C.? What are congressmen? What are senators? What are presidents? What is the Supreme Court? They're authoritarian psychopath control freaks who want to control us against our will and without our consent. There's like 7 more minutes left in this, but I'm not going to watch the rest of it. But you get it. He doesn't like the idea of the Democrats spending millions to create a Joe Rogan of the left, and he's got some criticisms against it, but it's milquetoast. At best, it's milquetoast. It's barely a breath. It's hardly anything, Kyle. So get your head out of your arse and stop being a statist like your right-leaning buddies across the aisle. Leave your thoughts about this. Remember, guys, the only way that I can promote this channel, the only way this channel is going to grow is if you like this video and share this video. It's absolutely free. You don't have to support. If you do want to support, the support links are below. But it's more important that you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to join the memberships are open now. I think I only have one member, and thank you very much for joining. But the best thing you can do is just like and share this video. I really appreciate it. If liberty matters to you, and it should matter to everybody, because if you don't have liberty, you don't have anything. Hit like and share, and I'll see you in the next video.